Today I'm going to try to be a purveyor of information. This did not originate with me. None of these stats. I'm not smart enough to create stats. I steal stats, I research stats, I relay stats, but I do not create them, other than maybe two sons. I did create those little ones. On the flip side, Brian Buffini covered a lot of pertinent information to kind of where we are right now, and we hadn't really done a class like that at Hometown that explains a little bit about what last year was nationwide, kind of how things seem to be trending, and then really like how we can adjust our strategies if we even need to. So that's the premise of what I'm going to share with you today, but the gist of it is, in true Buffini format, this is kind of like fill in the blank style. You'll see that there's some empty blanks. I'm going to go through it line by line, and I'll try to add some stuff on where it's possible. But feel free to stop me. If you have a question about a stat or anything like that, I want to slow down. I want to make sure that when you leave here, if you share this information, you feel good about it. And suck it up with the blue screen for a little while. I suck at technology. We got a video. It is what it is. So first and foremost, right, the market has changed. Maybe some of you have felt it. Maybe some of you would say, well, most of the areas I sell in, things are still multiple offers, selling fast. I don't feel like it's changed that much. The market has changed. And one thing that has happened with regard to the marketing changing is that buyers are older and richer. They are older and richer than they have been in many, many years past. In fact, the average age of home buyers in 2024, now remember, this is nationwide. This is not Richmond, it's not Virginia. Don't try to trick me. The average age of home buyers in 2024 nationwide was 56. 56. So when you hear that the average age of a home buyer last year was 56, what comes to mind?
A lot of old people bought houses.
A lot of old people buying houses. A lot of old people buying houses. And are we, I'll get to this, are we fishing in that pond when we're looking for buyers? You know, the way that I was trained, if I'm looking for buyers, I'm kind of starting with the youngest crew first, working my way up from there because, you know, first-time home buyers are the ones that are always making it happen out there. In terms of the number of transactions last year that were cash, 26% of transactions last year were cash money. And of the purchases, 17% of the buyers bought multi-generational homes. Anybody been involved in like a multi-generational deal? In-laws, parents move in, something like that? It definitely is happening more and more. And I'll tell you, I'm noticing at my age right now, my mom's in her early 80s, which is not, you know, that's up there. And for the first time ever, she's like, I don't know how much I want to go up and down the stairs. I don't know how safe I feel every time I go up and down the stairs. And it's to the point now where she's spending most of her time upstairs. Well, you're not getting the exercise and the move around time on one floor that you would get if you're going down the stairs, if you're going outside, if you're doing stuff like that. I'm not the only one thinking that way. You might want to call your friends that are in like their mid to upper 40s and see how their parents are doing. First-time home buyers represented 25% of the purchases last year. So 1 out of every 4 was a first-time home buyer. And I guess to segue off of that, that means, hey, do we still need to be marketing to first-time home buyers? Of course, like they're always going to exist. Do we need to put all of our buying, marketing power into that one basket? Maybe not. So flipping the script to sellers. Who thinks they can predict what the average age of home sellers was last year?
62.
63. 63. And of the sellers last year, 77% of them did not have children under 18 in the home. Now notice I didn't say that they didn't have children in the home. I said children under 18. Lots of, everybody's seen Modern Family, right? Like the TV show. Say,
Failure to launch.
Failure to launch, there we go. It's becoming more prevalent, right? I'm not saying I agree with these philosophies personally, because I'm going to catapult my boys into the world and they're going to tear some stuff up. But I know a lot of families that are like, hey, my kids aren't ready yet. My kids aren't ready yet. They're not positioned yet. They're not positioned the way I want them to be positioned yet. So they're staying home longer. They're getting their lives going a little bit more maybe than I did when it was like, as soon as college is over, as soon as I have some money stocked up, man, I am blazing my own trail and getting out there. Not every kid feels that way now. So a lot of moms and dads are happy to have the kids stay home. Last year, 23% of the people moved to be closer to family members. In my mind, that's like little babies being born. You know, it's like I want to be closer to the grandkids. You probably closed some deals like that last year.
Larry, what was that percentage? I'm sorry.
Last one was 23% of people moved to be closer to family. So the next line says, adjust your strategy. Does your marketing run parallel with the market stats? I discovered that mine didn't. And I was talking to Benjamin about this earlier because he did this with one of the agents on his team, I think maybe even like 2 years ago. If the average age is a bit older, are we asking for those introductions? For example, I've got a good network of fraternity brothers from Longwood, and if I credited anybody with the success of my business early, it would be those guys and their families and my wife. What I've never talked to any of those guys about and still don't feel comfortable yet is what their parents' situations are, right? Like, I expect my buddies to do business with me when the time comes. I will not ask for any consideration to represent their parents when they come. Well, now the stats tell me that my buddies ain't buying a house for a while. We've got kids. We're staying put. They're a lot like I am right now. But their parents might be going through something similar to what my mom is right now, right? If we don't ask, like, we're never going to get the information that we need. So adjust your strategy, because ultimately, principles don't change, tactics do. So we still need to do lead gen. We're still in the relationship business. First-time homebuyers still matter, right? But how do we need to adjust our tactics to make sure we're running parallel with what the market actually says? And the next segment, I think, will be more, less stats-driven and more, we're going to try to segue more into like, hey, what can we do about it? And what are the people that are doing the best right now doing, at least based on what Brian Buffini says? What they said we're doing right now is taking interest more deeply than ever before. And the most important key to success is still building and maintaining quality relationships. So instead of calling it a database, he called it, it's the first time I've heard it utilized this way, data centers are really popular. They're popping up left and right in Hanover County, big old 25 million square feet buildings taking up a lot of space. But ultimately, our databases are our data centers. And it's not meant to create and leave alone. It's meant to continually mine, right? Like, data needs to be going in and coming out. So the agents who do the most activities will make the most money. And I didn't say lead generation. I said activities. Activities could be literally calling a buddy that you haven't talked to in a couple of years, not knowing anything that might come from the meeting, but having the courage to get on the phone and set a face-to-face appointment because you know you need to do more of them. Call your buddy, set the appointment. Because at the end of 2024, at least according to Buffini, there were 700,000 agents nationwide. He also said that 2023 to 2024, we had almost 1 million exit the industry nationwide. Of that group, 47% did not sell a home last year. Now, I've heard a bunch of different stats. I've seen a bunch of different stuff online. What I'm going to tell you to do is do what I did. Make sure you source where you're getting your information. Just because, like, you know, Timmy on Instagram said that 99% of the agents in the market didn't sell a house last year, it doesn't mean it's real. So please don't relay information that you don't know has been vetted in some way, shape, or form. And if any of this...
In our MLS, it's like 24%.
24% locally.
So that's 78% national number that they said. I mean, that's
Seems a little high.
a lot of people in California.
Yeah, California, Florida. Average age and income, who could guess that? It was like 30 forever. Like 30 was the number, 30. What do you think it is now?
18.
It actually went higher, so that's great. Average sales price probably, huh?
I feel like I looked up, it was like 86 or something. I'm like, it was up there if I just did like a Google search.
45K. 45K. Kind of a generic number. Who knows? But again, burn the Buffini building down if you find out that any of this is not 100% accurate. 45K. That's tough to do what you need to do to make a successful living in real estate and be happy. You know, I don't know too many people making 45K right now that are happy, which is why probably so many people are changing jobs. So he had a segment called Pros versus Joes. And what he covered is kind of like how you could run a business and it would be okay. Like you wouldn't be a failure, but you would kind of just be like an average Joe. And then he had professionals, which he said really like kind of do the same thing that the average Joe does. They just do one thing, maybe a little bit better or with a little bit more intention. And so you can write these down if you want to. I don't think, is y'all's just blank? Gangsta. All right, I did that right. Average Joes have a goal. Like they do have goals. But a professional has a process to reach the goal. So the question there is, do you have a process that you feel confident about? If you do, rock and roll, man. Maybe a slight adjustment. If you don't, to be running with the professionals, you probably want to cultivate one. And there's a bunch of people that can help you do that. You will find no shortage of help at Hometown. Average Joes think they know already. My niece is such a good example of this. My niece is like 24, and I mean, she has all the answers because in 15 to 20 seconds, she can Google any question I have. And then she recites the information that she got from Google. And then we have like a fun 30-minute debate where I make her source the garbage that she keeps calling real information. And it's not fact, right? Like you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay. And just because we can find some information very quickly doesn't mean that we know everything. At the end of the day, professionals understand that improvement is constant. You will never know everything already. My niece told me one time, she's like, I read like 10% of the book, so I pretty much know everything. Like, all right. I went to class 10% of the time, so I feel like I pretty much know everything I need to know. I call 10% of my database, so it's going to be a record year. Average Joes give up. A lot of people giving up out there right now. In some sick way, I kind of like it. Like, when people give up, please don't think bad of me, but like, when they give up, it makes things easier for me. I don't even have to change what I'm doing. Them giving up gives me an advantage by just being focused and diligent. And people are giving up like never before. Professionals don't give up because they see failure as growth. It's like, it's not a mortal enemy. It's expected at the doorstep. And when it happens, it's like, okay, well, this is part of the process. If I'm not failing, I'm not growing. Average Joes blame others. Professionals take responsibility. Both of my sons are notorious like blamers right now. I mean, I feel like they could be one number shy of winning the full lottery and they would blame it on the Virginia lottery. You know what I mean? It's like, bro, you bought one ticket. You picked your own numbers out, but it's Virginia lottery's fault. It's like, yeah, Daddy, it is. I'm like, okay. Well, you're 11-7, so we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Professionals take responsibility and they take it quickly. Taking responsibility quickly will preserve your integrity. It'll build trust with your clients. But blaming others or prolonging taking responsibility, it exponentially does the opposite. And I'll get to that in a few minutes. And average Joes, they're productive, but they're inconsistent. Where professionals, they just stick to the process. Average Joes retreat. Professionals double down. And that means when things get hard, It's that fight or flight, right? If you run for the hills, you don't have to predict what's going to happen. If you stay in the fight, good things more than likely are going to happen. All right, I'm going to segue hopefully into something that won't go terribly. But there's something called the Dooley curve. If you've ever sat in on like a peak producer class or something like that, maybe you've heard of it before, but it's kind of like Brian Buffini's seasonal explanation on lead generation and cultivation. And it says that there's certain, at least based on history, there's certain months of the year that we should be doing certain things. And then human nature kicks in and certain things happen, right? Like, so we have the cultivation of business, then we have working the business where we all get so busy that we neglect our lead generation and things dip a little bit. The Dooley curve was created to try to help us understand that everything has its place, including days off and vacation, including days on and intention. And if you want to run with at least what they call the top producers in the field, this is kind of the season that you want to run. Again, this might be a little wonky, but bear with me and we'll get through it. Called it. Trying.
We believe in 2025 is going back to its traditional methodology. So we kind of show you this. What the Dooley curve looks like is you go through your year. This first quarter, you need to get about 40% of your listings and your business going in this first quarter. And I believe that will hold through this year. So you better get busy now. And what we're seeing right now all across the country and in other parts of the world is that people, there's a pent-up actually need to move. And it's actually sellers are putting their homes on the market. There's an increase in inventory happening. So right now, we've got to get after this, and we go January through March, we go hard. Then we start to close, and you start getting the closing season here in April. You get to April and May. One of the reasons we have our event called Peak Experience right there in May, it's usually after a bunch of closings take place, and people would like a little breath and a little juice for the rest of the year. Then you come on and you have June and July, you get this mid-spike. We call it the summertime surge. And you get about 20%. These are people who are trying to get into homes before school years and things like that, or before they change jobs nowadays. And then you'll have a little nice time. People take a vacation, time off. You can schedule your time off around here. Then September, you get back in the lead generation mode. Even though that looks there, that's like the most important lead generation month. And then boom, we finish with a nice peak at the end of the year, 25%. And you'll see there's a 15% gap because people buy homes and sell homes all the time.
All right. So that's my weightlifting guy. He carries around a mop, and he just tricks people because the mop weighs like 200 pounds. So that's good stuff. Golly, glad it wasn't anything different. So now the first thing I noticed was like I was running the math, and I'm like, man, we got 15% left over. Like, what's happening? He's right. Like, homes sell all the time. Somebody will call you around Christmas time and say, job change, something hit the market, whatever it ends up being. But I have found that the Dooley curve, when I track my business, actually ends up being pretty true. And what it really means to me, that 40% is not creating and closing. It's really just capturing. So let's say between now and 30 days from now, you do want to have about 40% of your annual goal kind of captured. Like we call it on the board. We just want them front and center. We know they're not all going to move at the pace we want them to, but we need them front and center because we got to keep coaching them, right? Inevitably, though, if we do our jobs right, you do get busy, and you still want to be husbands, wives, fathers, mothers, all the other things that you are. And if you're not careful, that's where you can have that little dip where you have to create the second tier of generation. But the dog days of summer, I can attest to being real. Taking a vacation in that August time frame, I have not taken vacations in August. I've been around here and I've been like, why in the hell is nothing happening, you know? And the fact of the matter is if you're thinking about other people and what they're going through, not you and what you're going through, then you're going to be able to serve these people better. And Every parent I know of doesn't want to put a kid in a new school in October or November unless they need to. So that tells me that there's going to be some type of surge of activity where if people want their kids to be in school, by the time the school year starts, they're probably going to buy a house by a certain point, or they're going to get pushed to the following year. You know, it's important to monitor the trends. The last hump, the 25%, the last quarter of the year is my favorite quarter. I was talking earlier about feeling like people lay down and die. I think once like the first holiday gets there, and at this point I think the first holiday might even be like Halloween. People are like, I have been waiting to lie down and die. Like, good, do it, because we're ramping up. What a time to do more social stuff. What a time to get in front of people when they're actually in a social setting, a social frame of mind, and expecting to hang out. It's like, dude, if I need to capture and cultivate 25% of my business at that point, easy money. Easy money. So later in the year, right, make sure your marketing calendar reflects capturing. At the beginning of the year, make sure you go back to work in January, even if there's some snow on the ground, even if there's some school closings, even if like you feel like there's every reason under the sun to not do it, because people are. Who has gotten on social media over the last 30 days and had any less than stellar feelings about what another realtor at another firm is doing versus what you're doing? And don't lie either. Matt's the only one in the whole room. At least he's honest. Thank you, Matt, for being honest. They're going to work. That's it. They went to work in January. They were working in December. They were working in November. Whoever does the most work is going to make the most money. If you want that to be you, you need to align your actions to run parallel with those people. It's as simple as that. The problem we have is that we don't want to make and take the actions that the top producers are doing, and then we want to complain about our results. I think that's where we need to adjust the philosophy. But if you don't have goals and stuff like that, it's going to be really, really hard for you to understand like what's real. I'm going to try to finish with a little bit on like negotiations, conflict resolutions, like even some general like talk tracks on how to deal with other agents, how to deal with clients, how to talk a little bit about commissions, stuff like that. So the first thing I've got is how can we make clients want to tell us what we need to know? My advice is to be quickly curious and then be quiet. Kind of like I've been running my mouth the whole time. Us realtors, like we love to talk if we feel like anybody will listen. But if information is what we need to get really, really good at asking those curious questions and then sitting on our hands. One way you can do that with regard to compensation is asking what, this is from Chris Voss. He's an author. He wrote The Full Fee Agent. He wrote Never Split the Difference. I haven't read either of those books, so it sounds kind of cool that I at least know the titles. But with regard to compensation, ask no questions. Ask questions that'll prompt a no. And whether or not you're comfortable asking this, that's not for me to decide. I'm comfortable asking this. So we're sitting down and we're trying to lay some groundwork, and the question on commission comes up. This is a seller, right? And so I say, hey, look, like Matt, we're going to create a battle plan together. I'm going to hire a professional photographer, videographer, and then my firm is going to aggressively market your home. Hometown sells more in Hanover County than any other firm. Do you feel that I should make significantly less than the average agent commission if I deliver that level of service? Now, I have no doubt that there is a percentage of people in here right now that's not comfortable saying that or something like that. You feel like it'll start a problem or something like that. I think it's the first opportunity for you to stand up for yourself based on what you're worth. So who thinks a client is going to be like, yeah, I do. I'm serious, it's okay. I got thick skin, I can take it. Like, yeah, I do think you should make less than the average agent commission. Then why not ask? I mean, it seems like it's worth it if that's the case. If your buyer and seller presentations are first class, most bad news is better received by the client when the time comes. It's a chance to set expectations, talk about scenarios, and establish trust with client. And I wrote down here, slow down. We have a lot of avenues of distraction. If you have a listing presentation other than your phone, maybe leave every other distraction in your car if you're going to make a solid commission check off of it and ask for a full shot. Let the client know up front how long the appointment might take. Make sure you cover important scenarios and let them know that it comes from two places. First, experience. I have seen these things happen before. I don't want them to happen to you. The other is care. Like, I cannot give you the level of service I promised and let you stumble aimlessly through a deal. I want you to know some of the things that might happen, and I want you to know what we're going to do if those things happen. Share stories. If you're new to the business, shadow somebody to get some stories. If you're not new to the business, you already got plenty of stories, I'm sure. But the whole cliche about stories sell, they do because they're relatable. They make people's mind cling on to something that they feel is similar to the story, right? Like, I went through something similar once upon a time. I get it. I think I've done this in a class before. I'll use an example. I had a fraternity brother who married one of my wife's sorority sisters. And if you want to make me nervous, like, that's kind of the duo to, because I'm like, somebody's going to get pissed off. Somebody's going to lose a friend. Like, I better kiss everybody's butt in this transaction. But my fraternity brother kind of like ran point on it. I communicated with him all through negotiations, all through the listing presentation, the whole 9 yards. And then we got to the point of the home inspection. And the home inspection, we got murdered. I think it was like 65-page inspection overall, 5-6 pages on the summary, like just bad for a first-time home buyer to see. And that's when I get a call from the wife. I hadn't talked to her much. She explains that one of the kids has like wicked allergies. And one of the items on the report was the crawl space. Like, the crawl space had like science projects growing in it. And my first reaction was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get you out of the contract. This is a lot. I can tell y'all hate it. You know, like, I'm gonna get you out of the contract. Well, Greg Spicer was on the other side of the deal. And I don't know if y'all have ever done a deal with Greg, but Greg, in like a smiling, almost like laughing at me, probably was like, we're gonna keep it together. And I was like, well, Greg, how are we gonna do that? He's like, Larry, look, man, if you want to put every item from the inspection report on there and you feel like that's what you need to do to make your clients feel good, do it, man. He's like, I'm not going to get upset. I'll make sure my clients don't get upset either. Matter of fact, I'll tell them that I told you to do it. I'm not saying we're going to fix them all. I am telling you that if it'll make them feel better, to get it on there. And what we did, we agreed half of the items, kept them all kind of safety related, so that she would feel like, you know, she was heard overall and that the kids were safe. And Greg performed to a T, no problem at all. The deal closed. They got 2 more kids now. Those kids don't have allergies. And like, everything worked out. But what's happening in real estate right now is a record number of contracts falling through. Because they don't have Greg Spicers on the other side and they act like Larry's. You know what I mean? You can't run for the hills at the first sign of adversity, and that might be a short appraisal. It might be a terrible home inspection. And if that's how you're guiding your clients, no wonder they're so frantic, right? A good buyer presentation is going to have them prepared for all of that. I can look and pick out probably 5 people in here that could give you a smashing buyer presentation. No problem at all. So that's not hard. But if you're not doing a buyer presentation with clients and you're not covering those scenarios with the way the market is shifting, that could create some big problems in the meat of the deal. And that's when we need the referrals. That's when we're supposed to be picking low-hanging fruit by showing them how good we are at stuff. If they're frantic and pissed off, they are not going to refer you to anybody, right? So remember the big picture. Buyer and seller updates. We talked about it. Practice your presentation, because ultimately, trust is earned in ounces and lost in pounds. Like, you may have to deliver several times just to build up a sliver of credibility. One missed phone call that you promised to a client, gone. It just depends on what type of person they are. They're a serious business person. They run a tight schedule. You made them a promise. They're big on integrity. You drop the ball. No referrals coming your way after that. It matters. When it comes to delivering bad news, Deliver it immediately after the problem arises. And Chris Voss gave something really, really cool. I'll see if I can find it. I've got bad news. Here it is. That was his advice. No.
And that's you should definitely read that book, because it was like an FBI like hostage negotiator, and the comment, like every realtor just sees a $5,000 difference, and they're like, all right, we'll meet you in the middle. It's like the worst negotiating tactic ever.
100%. Like,
Got good, just
He-
language to use.
he said that like most of the battles we lose, it's like it's our fault. Like we kind of do it to ourselves. That seems harsh, but if get away from the emotions, right? If I don't call you, if I call you tomorrow about something that happened yesterday, and I don't tell you in the moment that it happened yesterday, and you find out some other way that it happened yesterday, but I didn't tell you about it until tomorrow, how are you going to feel? It's not good. It's not like a milestone in life. This is something bad. It's like, dude, why didn't you tell me? Like, we could have been doing something about it. So his idea is to deliver the bad news immediately. He's like, you're delivering a gut punch. Deliver it. And then help them start healing. Don't linger around, punch them when they're not expecting it, and then think that they're going to rapidly heal. It just doesn't work that way. So in this case, we had the home inspection. I call Rick. I tell him how it goes. I ask him how he wants to proceed. Find out what he's trying to do, right? And then based on experience or whatever you have from there, you form a plan. But you need to be putting yourself in their shoes, and you don't need to over dramatize bad news. Get it out of the way. Let them know what your plan of action is. Let them know the specifics on what you're trying to do, even if there is no solution, and then continue to deliver. He even says, when you deliver bad news, it's okay to tell them, I'll be honest with you right now, I do not have a plan of action, but I'm going to call you at this time. I hope to have one by then. No matter what, you're going to hear from me with some type of update. That's about as much as we can give people, right? Like we can't do much more than that. I'm going to do something real quick with y'all. It's similar to some material that Ben covered last week. I don't know if y'all were on there or not, but it's regarding communication style and pace of resolution. And I want to make this really, really quick. Number 1 is fastest. Number 4 is slowest. In terms of communication style, that would resolve something fastest. What communication style would it be? Face-to-face. Why is that, Britt?
Because you can talk through everything and you can read body language, and I feel like people are a little more amenable when you're one-on-one, not behind a screen.
Back in high school, like you could kind of identify, let's say that there's, at the beginning of a school year, there's 2 groups of kids that get picked on. One group over time doesn't fight back. One group does. 6 months later, who's still getting picked on?
Kids that don't fight back.
It's true. Like, so if I want to stop a bully, I'm going to stop the bully directly so that he knows the next time that he comes to try to do the same thing, it's not that easy. If I send a bully a text message, I feel like he's probably going to be waiting for me earlier tomorrow to beat me up. You know what I mean? Like, it goes the same way in real estate. What's number 2? Second fastest communication style. Phone call. All right, let's keep it going. What do we think number 3 is?
Text.
Let's go. And finally, email. All right, so why does email have the slowest pace of resolution? That's one really, we all assume that we check email literally like every 9 seconds. It's like, you didn't get the email? Like, you just sent it 2 minutes ago, dude. Like, sorry. Britt made a good point. I think email takes any of the senses out of it. There's no feel. There's no I can see you, I can hear you. In fact, the recipient creates all of those. And how they create them is kind of how that goes. Why would we visit somebody in lieu of sending them a text? Actually, let me say this. Why would we call somebody instead of sending them a text? Why wouldn't we just send a text, though?
More immediate resolution or more immediate communication. It's not interactive.
Dude, if you get a text from me, you probably got like, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 plus texts that day, maybe. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of what we get. How many voicemails do you get in a day? If somebody leaves me a voicemail, it carries a higher weight than the 99 text messages I got that day. Depending on the content of the voicemail, maybe even more, right? So why do we keep lying to ourselves saying that we're going to smash real estate by sending 99 texts every day? Why do we think that email is going to solve the most serious problems in a real estate deal? Seems like getting in front of somebody or giving them a call is what's going to do that. So the style should match the needed pace of resolution. If we email and text for most issues, we're kind of creating our own space that wastes time unnecessarily. If we make a call or visit, though, how we handle those interactions probably becomes the next important thing. But the more passive the form, the more freedom for the client to fill in the blanks. And most of us, myself included, would fill the blanks in with drama instead of optimism. You know, people just don't seem to be optimistic by nature. So like Ben said last week, stop educating and start inspiring, right? Like start trying to fill people with good feelings even when things aren't going good, right? Like that's what you can do. The last part, and I'll try to get us out of here in the next like 5 to 7 minutes, I call it the gold standard. You need to develop your personal and business standards. Nobody can really do that for you, but you can talk through it with somebody. Most standards are supported by routines. You'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that's got high standards without some type of associated routine to maintain the standard. So I ask you kind of like, what are your daily baselines? A morning personal routine should align with your goals and standards. A morning routine should prime you physically and mentally. So do you have a morning personal routine, not a morning business routine? An evening personal routine should align with your goals and standards too. They make maintaining the standard easier as the days go on. A good nighttime routine literally will make your next day easier and easier and easier and easier. Business routines, though. Here's what I wanted you guys to do in terms of like action steps analysis. Where's your business come from in the past? And how much time did you spend cultivating that business? What are the most effective business techniques for you? When you audit your business, where'd the business come from? Did you stop doing it? Did you double down? It might be double down season. I wrote, don't fish in the ocean if there are fish in your local pond. There are fish in the ocean. The ocean is also massive. And maybe we need to fish there sometimes. But if there are fish in our local pond, i.e. past clients, relationships, friendships, affiliations, we should probably start there first. So start in the local pond before you start trying to fish in the ocean. And I think social media could be the ocean. So who in your database or sphere of influence do you know that might fit the criteria of last year's stats? When's the last time you spoke with them? Again, segueing off of something that I got from last week, it's a 4-step process. When you identify those people, get organized with how you're going to communicate with them, make the calls, get face-to-face time with them, and then anchor the relationship. Best way to anchor a relationship is with a follow-up phone call and a note after that. Any questions? Anybody feel like from here, knowing that buyers and sellers last year were older, Anybody feel like they got a little bit of a different idea on some lead gen that they could be doing from here? If that's the case, then we're good to go. I appreciate y'all coming today. Thanks.
Larry.